Good afternoon, everyone. Um, Coming to you with another commentary, and this commentary will be on the subject of planned obsolescence, the concept of planned obsolescence. Now, what planned obsolescence is, I'm going to give you the definition of that. Planned obsolescence is a policy of producing consumer goods that rapidly become obsolete and so require replacing, achieved by frequent changes in design, termination of the supply of spare parts, and the use of non-durable materials. So you see planned obsolescence being practiced commonly within electronics, specifically with Apple products. Now, of course, we all know what Apple is. We have familiarity of what Apple products are. And Apple is a big time, multi-billion dollar corporate giant that produces MacBooks, produces iPods, iPads, different things, different type of products. They also produce televisions. So Apple is infamous for using these practices in order to give these electronics a shorter lifespan. Now, there was an article that came out. It's multiple articles, and as a matter of fact, that talks about Apple's use of planned obsolescence in order to make it to where these devices that they sell have a short lifespan, so that the consumers can consistently purchase new products. So what we have here is an article from Digital Trends, and it talks about how Apple is under an investigation over iPhone planned obsolescence because apparently the iPhone is probably the biggest, perhaps the biggest consumer item there is, the biggest selling item for Apple. So, so many people have iPhones. A lot of people have other Apple products as well. But just to give you a little background of Apple before I really get into uh, detail about this article, Apple was started 42 years ago. The whole concept of Apple was developed back in 1976. It was founded by the late Steve Jobs, and it was co-founded with his partner Steve Wozniak. So Apple has had a long, long history of putting out products, especially as it pertains to technology. Um, Different generations of computers, different generations of telephones, generations of musical devices, you name it. I mean, they've come an extremely, extremely long way. And again, they're a multi-billion dollar corporate giant. So, but the thing about that is that even though they've made all of these innovative products that so many consumers have gravitated towards and used for business purposes, used for pleasure, for various reasons, it still didn't. It still came as a. They still use a lot of deceptive practices, apparently, in order to sell a lot of these products. Don't get me wrong; these products are very, very useful, depending on who you ask. But at the same time, particularly iPhones, apparently they have shorter lifespans than usual because they consistently upgrade the models. There's so many different models of iPods out there now, or excuse me, iPhones. So we're gonna go into more detail now. Now there's so far I believe there's let's see. Now the iPhone was first released in 2007, so this was back when I was still in high school during that time. And there's been several generations of iPhones ever since then. Now here we have this article about planned obsolescence. Now any technology lover, any type of person who's very, very into technology and gadgets and everything of that nature, they don't want to hear about planned obsolescence because they figure that their product is going to last forever. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And and basically during this investigation, France and particularly the United States, they've made these laws. Well, we're going to focus on France for right now. There are some very, very stringent laws as it pertains to planned obsolescence, and this would efficiently or effectively affect the company, Apple itself. So Apple is, I mean, again, it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Now, it's very, very crazy when you think about it because if you look at a iPhone, and if the iPhone is say two, maybe let's just say it has a lifespan of 2 years. 2 years is actually it's not a long time. I mean, most people like myself, we like to get as much out of our products as possible. We like to use our products until, I mean, I can keep the same phone for multiple years. I don't have to go out and upgrade. It's not that serious to me because at the end of the day, I like to get the most out of the product that I purchase. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. I mean, I do have the understanding that electronics, just like humans and just like animals, they have a lifespan. Over time they will deteriorate, and also they are replaceable. So things to think about it. Kitchen appliances, they get old. Vehicles, they get old and they don't last forever. Televisions, video game consoles, numerous electrical devices, they don't last forever. We understand that. But if you have a product such as say an iPhone that only lasts you a year before it already becomes defective and starts having multiple malfunctions, then that's a problem. There has to be something to that. And apparently Apple has this thing where they program their phones to make it to where within the next year or two they have to be replaced because they're going to drop the new iPhone 8, iPhone 9 or whatever. I'm not really sure how many like generations or how many versions of iPhones that they have out because I'm not really too big on Apple. I'm not a real Apple user like that. Not the computer that I have is not even an Apple. I have a Microsoft. But I will say this, that every time you look around, there's a new iPhone dropping. You can say you can have purchased the latest model iPhone, and you may thought that you were up to speed and that you had the latest model, and that latest model you won't have to purchase a phone for another say 5 years. You think you're set, but it doesn't work that way. Now to get back on to this article. Now France apparently have these laws against planned obsolescence that carries a maximum sentence of 2 years of imprisonment and 5% of the company's annual turnover. So it can essentially cost the corporation billions of dollars, and that's really a huge deal because the older iPhones they slow down. They slow down and they don't really work and operate the same speed as the later models. So that's an issue because um, you have people who purchase these phones, and if they don't really understand the whole concept of planned obsolescence, then they'll buy these phones, and next thing you know, it's already experiencing multiple glitches, multiple malfunctions, and it's just a very sticky situation. Now, there's been numerous complaints from consumer rights groups in France about the Apple product. And then basically as it pertains to the iPhones and the timing of the devices are slowing down. And there's been multiple complaints filed against they have a consumer rights group in France. It's called HOP, and it's an acronym for, I don't know how to pronounce this. I believe it's Halt l'Obsolescence Program, something like that. It's French, but it's numerous, and they've made numerous complaints against big time corporations, especially as it pertains to electronics. So Apple isn't the only one that they have made complaints against. They've also made complaints against printer manufacturers. You know, you have Epson, you had HP, you have Brother, and you have Canon. Those are like big name corporations as it pertains to printer manufacturers. So it's these things, they use these tactics um, in their devices to make it to where they're the product, the gadgets, particularly these iPhones, over time they become defective and useless. So which makes it to where these consumers already have to replace their phones. So they have to go spend another $800 or however much these phones cost. These phones are extremely expensive. So when a new iPhone drops, they want to purchase the upgraded version of it, and it's really just a racket at the end of the day. And that's really the whole purpose of planned obsolescence. It's a cash grab ultimately. So that's why we really have to pay attention to these things, because these things affect us, the consumers. We're really, I mean, most consumers are very into electronics, especially phones. You look at this generation, and even most of the older generation as well. We become so dependent on our phones, or we use our phones for pretty much anything, whether it's gaming, whether obviously it's to make telephone calls, text messages, business purposes. I mean, it's so many things we can use our phones for nowadays. And so, in a nutshell, it seems like we become so dependent and so attached to our mobile devices. But also, I just want to let you know that there is a catch and a spin to having these devices. So you just have to be careful and have to really understand that these products are being manufactured with a short lifespan for the purpose of getting consumers, reeling consumers in to purchase the product and giving them the expectation to purchase a new upgraded version of that product within the next year or two, because the device already is becoming um, just worn out and it becomes defective. There's glitches and there's malfunctions on the phone that makes these consumers want to upgrade the phones. But not only that, you still have there might be some consumers out there who has the new iPhone, and their iPhone isn't necessarily throwing out any type of malfunctions or glitches or anything of that nature, which would force them to purchase a new product. Some of them, their phone works perfectly fine, but because they want to, a lot of people want to have the latest version of something just to say that they have the latest version. They want to feel like they're completely up to speed as it pertains to having the latest product. So some people just are automatically off the rip when they see the latest iPhone is dropping, they're going to want to purchase it because their friends might be getting it, or a bunch of other people that they're close with, family members, whoever, they have it and they want to have it as well. So that could be it too. But for sure, planned obsolescence is a big thing, and it is something that I want people to really understand. So apparently, Apple seems to be basically on the forefront of this concept, because Again, there's so many different versions of iPhones that have been released, and I know personally there's people out there who have iPhones, and next thing you know, already they purchase an iPhone, and next thing you know, within a year they're already ready to purchase their new phone. So this is something that we should pay attention to. So whenever you get an opportunity, look up planned obsolescence and look up any articles related to Apple, and also do some research on planned obsolescence as it pertains to any other electronics, such as printers, such as televisions, such as kitchen appliances. I'm pretty sure it affects those products as well. But until then, thanks for tuning in on this subject of planned obsolescence, and hope to hear from you soon. Peace.